Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media, 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. Hey there, folks. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and thank you for checking out this latest edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. I'm being joined by Brian Murphy, who's the sports editor for our Frisco, Little Elm, and Salina papers, as well as Justin Thomas, who's the sports editor for our Denton County papers. And gentlemen, let's play some catch-up on the baseball and softball playoffs. It was we had some weather delays on Friday, but it seems like for the most part everything kind of went off without a hitch. No series got prolonged, and I guess our work days, our coverage slates kind of varied. Some of us had to work a little bit longer than others on Saturday. Sorry, Brian. And but yeah, now we have an idea of who all is advanced, and we're just going to try to make sense out of these the first two rounds of the softball playoffs, the first round of the baseball playoffs, and what we saw over these past few days. Just to kind of give you all an update, we have our market's thinned out quickly in softball. We have just 4 teams left between classes 6A and 5A. We've got Plano Senior, Flower, Mound, Coppell, and Prosper still kicking around. And then with one round of the baseball playoffs in the books, we've got Marcus, Saxe, Coppell, The Colony, Frisco, Reedy, Frisco Wakeland, and Prosper. So congratulations to those teams for advancing in their respective series. So let's try to make some sense of it all. Justin, what was your biggest takeaway from what you saw last week, whether it was covering baseball or softball?
Well, I hate to start with a negative, but I guess kind of the biggest storyline is when the state champ is officially eliminated.
We're going to have a new class. There's going to be a new state champion in Class 5A this year already.
Second round.
Second round, yeah. So Colony goes down to Forney. They got swept in a best-of-3 series. They lost. They got handled up on in Game 1, 13-1. Much better effort out there on Friday, but they come up short by 1 run to Forney. So. The reigning state champs are no longer. They're out in the area round. I don't think it's honestly a huge surprise, though. This is a Forney team that they played each of the past 2 years in the playoffs, and they needed 3 games to get past them, including last year on the way to state. So, familiar foe and a good, traditionally strong opponent in Forney. And not sure exactly what happened in Game 1. I guess it just kind of snowballed, but a much better effort. But just couldn't get it done on Friday. They had a couple chances. I think they were down 2, cut the lead to 1, and they had the tying runner at third and the winning go-ahead run at second with 1 out in the 6th inning. Couldn't get the tying run across, and then the game ends in a pretty tough way. They get a a sacrifice to move the runner to second. I guess she just got a little antsy, tried to take third as well, and didn't get there. Kind of got a little rundown, not even really a rundown, just got tagged out before getting to third. So tough way to end the season on the bases there, but the Colony down in the area around to Forney.
It just shows that, you never, because this Colony team, they won state last year, and they looked so dominant, along the way in doing so, and they had most of the pieces back from that team. Yeah. It just goes to show that you never know when the pieces are all going to fall into place. And I think, because you covered Louisville, a handful of years ago when they won their state title, and that core was relatively young at the time, right?
That was Mary Beth Gorsuch was a freshman then when she let him in. I believe the next year, they didn't even make the playoffs the next year before getting back. One of those years they didn't make it when she was kind of banged up.
So no matter how locked in and how consistent that core is, you never know, because the playoffs are it's a different animal altogether. Yeah. That region, Region 2 5A is a different animal.
It's just how it goes in, obviously most sports, but baseball and softball. Colony won the state last year, but like I said, they easily could have lost the game in the second or third round. It's not like they were run ruling everybody all the way there, So
that matchup in the second round is pretty much like a regional tournament.
Yeah, it really is.
Forney's so good. I saw them play last year in the playoffs against Little Elm, and they had a freshman pitcher last year, Savannah DeRocher or something like that. I think she was their ace again this year, and she's awesome. So that doesn't surprise me that they were able to upset.
You mentioned the Colony being really young, winning state last year, and so obviously they still have a bright future because they're they have some seniors, but really only one kind of, I would say, core player is going to be graduating from this year. So a lot of their key players will be still coming back, including most of their Division I.
As long as you have Jada Coleman, I think you're okay.
Yeah. And just for context sake, this was a rematch of last year's regional final out of Region 2
That's what
5A.
the matchup should have been, honestly. In the second round, that's tough. It's like in basketball with Prosper and Lone Star Girls playing in this third round. It's just not fair, for the
Well, when you don't win the district,
that's the thing. You open yourself up to drawing a district champion in that second round versus the third round. So let's see. Yeah, that was obviously
Should we keep rolling on with softball and the craziness that happened on
why
Friday
not,
night
man?
as well?
This was this is quite a Flower Mound, just a team that has just delivered in the clutch all season, and they might have had their finest hour in that respect on Friday in was it Game 3 of that series?
Game 3, they had little weird scheduling because the series out in Cleveland. They actually played Game 1 on Wednesday, and Flower Mound got that one, and then they went back out there to Cleveland on Friday for a doubleheader, and Waco Midlake got the first game, and me and you were kind of talking back and forth on Friday. I'm here doing some editing, and Matt was still finishing up his story from his game he had that night, and was kind of looking ahead to Plano playing Midway because we're looking at Game Changer, and Flower Mound's down 7-0 in the 6th inning, so
it was almost to try to, I guess, give an example. It was almost like the classic Dewey defeats Truman moment, almost. Where I was covering Plano Senior against South Grand Prairie because Plano won that game. They were going to get the winner of Midway and Flower Mound. And as I'm writing my story, and actually at the very end, you want to throw in a hook as far as what's going to be who their next matchup's going to be against. So when you go ahead and check Game Changer, like you said, Waco Midway was up 7-0 in the bottom of the 6th, and you're thinking, okay, well, I guess that's in order. All right, so I proceeded then to type up, about 100, 150 words or so, previewing Plano versus Midway, sending you that story in the event that, because it felt like that was just inevitable at that point. And then I keep refreshing Game Changer, and it felt like every time I refreshed Game Changer, Flower Mound added a run. So I don't know if this... And then, so then they were down 7-0 in the bottom of the 6th. They were able to force extra innings with just some...
they got 4 in the 6th and 3 in the 7th to force extra innings, and then Grace Meter gets the big walk-off hit in the bottom of the 9th for the 8-7 win.
Just crazy. So I did revise the end of my story and send it back to Justin, updated on the web, so there wasn't like hey, get ready for Plano Midway. And so that should be, Flower Mound is, I don't know how there's like the 4th or 5th time that they've won a game within the last inning or so, just with some crazy heroics. This is a team that literally no lead is safe against this Flower Mound team.
And props to Flower Mound's Caitlin Sadler. I know she's a pitcher, but she went all 9 innings in that game for Flower Mound, so being a workhorse for the Lady Jags. And they'll draw Plano in the next round, and that's who I got to see on Friday. Their game was far less dramatic than that. Plano ruled South Grand Prairie 15-0. Wow. This was, I mentioned this in my rapid reaction, like there are going to be some sports where the by-district round between 5-6A and 6-6A is just so back and forth and up and down. You've got 2 really good teams going at it. And then if you get past that round, in some sports, there's going to be a drop-off when you get to that second round against either 7-6A or 8-6A. And, granted, there are some quality softball teams within those 2 districts, like Midway, like Mansfield and whatnot. But in the case of SGP, this was just a no contest. Plano it was as dominant as Plano's looked all season, far more dominant than they looked in any one point during district play. They've been, their offense has been... They had those 15 runs after, 3 innings or something?
It was 15 after 4 innings, Yeah,
I saw your tweet. That was Friday night, right? Yeah, so my game was a lot closer. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Mine's back and forth, back down to the wire, and I checked Twitter, and I see your tweet, and I was like, 15-0. What's going on? We're in
second round. You'd think that it's the way the playoff brackets are structured. It doesn't all the time. Each round doesn't get progressively more difficult. In some sports, it's that first round might be tough. Second round's a little bit easier. But it seems like now that once you're in the third round and going on, now the fun part begins because Plano Flower Mound ought to be a doozy with with Plano, their offense has just been clicking all season. They were far and away the best offense in District 6-6A. They between district play and the in the playoffs, they're averaging right around 8.5 runs per game, and it's just the productivity's just been up and down the lineup. One thing in the 2 games that I've seen of theirs. I saw game 2 of their first round series against Marcus, and then the SGP game. Natalie O'Brien, batting 6th of them, already has 2 home runs this postseason, home run in each game. Both pitchers, Bronte Roden, she was great in the Marcus series. They actually threw their backup pitcher against SGP, Audrey McNeil. She obviously pitched a complete game shutout. So Plano looks, they've looked the part, but this series against Flowermount ought to be a doozy. Brian, just kind of
real quick. So Plano, they only had one game in bi-district round also?
No, it was a 3. That was a best of 3.
Okay.
That was best of 3. It won all 3. That's it. The series against Marcus was, Marcus beat him 9-2 that first game, and Plano had to rally and to win games 2 and 3, and then they get to the second round, an area where they had struggled these past 2 years. Like as mentioned, Mansfield and Midway had both dealt Plano some pretty heartbreaking losses in the second round, but that's one way to get the monkey off your back is to run, roll, and overmatch team 15-0. Brian, let's shift gears to you and just talk a little about what your takeaway from last week was.
Wakeland softball eliminated in the second round to Hawesville. I didn't expect that. That series went the distance. They played both games on Saturday. They lost games 2 and game 3. Kendall Fritz, they maybe figured her out after facing her in back-to-back games. They put 9 runs on her. She led the area in strikeouts. I know at the end of the regular season, I don't know after the playoff stats and whatnot, but into the regular season, she was leading the area in strikeouts, 233, I think it was. She gave up 12 hits, 9 runs. They lose 9-1 to Hallsville. So their season is over. But Salina, they look good. Yeah. Friday against Sanger, they scored 4 runs in the first 2 innings, and then Sanger just kept crawling back, inched away, and then that game got intense. In the 7th inning, Sanger loaded the bases with 1 out, and Michaela Galloway got out of it. There was a crazy catch in center. I put that in my story. That was, Carla Bartlett, Salina head coach, said that was the play of the game. It should have been on ESPN that night. It was pretty sweet. Really? I got it on video, and then come up with huge strikeouts, and they hang on. Now they play Crandall in the regional quarterfinals this weekend at Plano West. So they avoid Argyle. Crandall knocked out Argyle in softball. So I thought we were going to get a
no small feat knocking out Argyle.
Yeah, for sure. I thought we were going to get a Salina-Argyle third-round matchup, and that would have been pretty juicy. District foes there, and Argyle, they're good in like every sport. So, but this little face Crandall, and Salina looks really, really good right now. They have 2 really good pitchers, senior Randy Dobbins and then a sophomore Michaela Galloway, and they just kind of bounce off each other. And they're two aces on the same team, which is really dominant. We talked about all the time, in softball, if you have 1 ace, you're good. Well, they have 2, so Salina can make a deep playoff run.
Over in baseball, I would say the biggest takeaway from what I saw these past 2 weeks, wow. I don't know if we hold a moment of silence for District 6-6A or what to do, because 5-6A just, even though the pieces were different this time around from last year, 5-6A just remains a juggernaut on the baseball diamond as they sweep District 6-6A in the first round. I got to see 2 of the games that were part of that sweep. On Thursday, South Lake Carroll against Plano. Just wow, that South Lake offense was just too much. This was a two-game sweep. Game 1, the one I was at was 12-1 South Lake. The Dragons won game 2 7-3. That game was a bit more competitive. It was 3-3 about midway through. Then South Lake pulled away with 4 unanswered runs. But just what South Lake's, and that was kind of the story. That was South Lake's offense versus a Plano team that only once during district play in a series did they allow double-digit runs from an opponent over the course of a home-and-home series. And that was against Plano West. Every other series was they gave up 3 runs one series. 4. They were a solid defensive team, but just too much offense from old South Lake Carroll. And then I guess JT, you could speak to Marcus.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Plano West putting double digits up in the regular season, but they the bats were a little quieter against Marcus. They only scored 7 runs total in their 3-game series against the Marauders. So they got. I wasn't covering these games. Our coworker Taylor was, but Marcus dropped the first game 3-0, but then they came back on Saturday to sweep a doubleheader and get back to the second round after making the regional tournament last year. So they get a walk-off hit from Mitchell Dixon to win game 2, 3-2, and then game 3 followed also at Marcus, and they kind of pulled away in that one. For the 8-2 win, we kind of talked last week previewing the series about Marcus, how they have pretty tough 1-2 tandem on the mound, and that kind of showed to be the case. Especially on Saturday, they had 2 pitchers that both pitched complete games. Justin Klein-Sorgi pitched the first game, and then Steve Hayward went the complete game for the game 3 win. So good pitching from Marcus, and they had 4 extra base hits to kind of pull away and win that third game.
On Saturday, I was out at Allen to see what was, I guess, if you want to call it on paper, the biggest upset of these, of these four playoff series. I mean, Byron Nelson and Allen, their 3-game series, it went the distance. I mean, these two teams, despite Allen being the 6-6A champion, Byron Nelson being the 4 seed out of 5-6A, these two teams looked like dead equal. I mean, it was the starting pitching was great on both sides. I went and just tabulated just these ERAs collectively for the starting pitching for that series. Allen's was 1.53 and Nelson's was 1.35. And so it was just, these were not like, it wasn't until on Saturday when you finally got some semblance of offense. Game 1 was, it went 8-9 innings. Allen won 2-1 on an error by Nelson, and then Nelson won game 2 2-0. So these were just, pitchers' duels in the truest sense. And then finally, finally something had to give on Saturday, and that was simply Nelson got to Allen's bullpen, and in a bit of a fashion that you might not have expected coming in. I don't know if you guys have had to cover a game yet where a team has had to comply with the pitch count rule.
No, that really hasn't been an issue for me throughout the year so far.
So it was the case with
at least not within a game. Maybe.
It was the case with Allen. Their starter for Game 3, Kenton Pierce, they threw him in relief for their extra inning win in Game 1. He threw 40 pitches in Game 1. So per the UIL's pitch count rule, you can't pitch more than 110 over the course of a series. So he was limited to 70 pitches for Game 3, and in those he lasted 4 2/3 innings before hitting that limit. Over that course, he gave up just 1 hit, no runs, 4 base runners total, and then from the moment Allen had to go to its bullpen through the end of the game, Nelson racked up 8 hits. So over the final 2 1/3, it started off with it was a bit of a bang play, a grounder to third base. I couldn't tell from my vantage point whether the runner was safe or not. It was a close call. Obviously, Allen fans, were adamantly against it. Nelson fans agreed with it. What else is new? That's
I realize that at any baseball or softball game, called ball or strike, even if you're down the foul line, they're gonna boo any bad call, any close play at the plate, even though they're way on the other side.
Fans are gonna be fans.
They're gonna boo.
And so the Nelson runner was safe, and then the very next at bat.
Both ways.
Come on, Blue. That's right.
That's the biggest thing you hear. Come on, Blue.
Why are you squeezing us?
So then on the very next at bat, then Nelson, Bo Windebank, the leadoff hitter, he sent a shot to left center field. Allen took a bit of an aggressive angle trying to catch it, wasn't able to get to the ball. Ball bounces to the wall inside the park home run. So just like that, this game where Nelson was just lifeless, for the first 4 2/3, they get just this momentum boost, this little surge of emotion out of nowhere, and they just kind of ride that through the finish line. They had 7 unanswered runs and won 7-3 in a series that has just been back and forth, and something had to give. And it's a tough way to exit for Allen's bullpen and whatnot. Tough way to exit, period, for the Eagles, who won district for the 2nd straight year. Funny, weird stat. This was the first time Allen had lost a by-district playoff series since 1999. Now, they hadn't made the playoffs every year during that span, but that's the first time they'd lost a by-district series in almost 20 years. Wow. So let's see. I don't know. Did you guys have anything otherwise?
I had a couple little more baseball things I wanted to plus on. First of all, out in 5A, props to the Colony. They win a playoff series for the first time ever. They get past Lone Star in a Frisco Lone Star in a 3-game series out at Prosper. They won Game 1 on Thursday, dropped Game 2 on Friday, and came back on Saturday and got Game 3 3-2. They got a big 2-run single with the bases loaded from Cade Irwin to get a little early lead, and then a little insurance late when Cam Hill tripled and scored on a sacrifice fly by Joseph Whitaker. And kind of like Marcus, we talked about the Colony's pitching depth maybe being a strength heading into the playoffs, and it's always nice when you go to a Game 3 and then you have 2 guys you can bring in to combine, and Keegan Schultz gives him a great start. He throws the first 4 innings, and then Jordan Oliveira has 3 no-hit innings of relief for the save. So really, Colony kind of got it from everywhere. They got great performance on the hill from Shea Hardis to open the series. Kind of got shut down a little bit by Bogus over there at Lone Star in Game 2, but came back with a good all-around game on Saturday. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was I wanted to give a little shout out to Coppell. First, they had a 1-game by-district series, and LSU signee Ryan Gunter, who Kendrick chatted with.
Former
before.
guest of the podcast.
Former
absolutely.
podcast guest. He threw a no-hitter. It was 6 innings, 7 strikeout, no-hitter. So Coppell beats Naaman Forest 11-0, and then the Coppell softball team also won. So they're going to be headed to the regional quarterfinals for the first time since 2009. They beat Lufkin 2-1. They got 2 runs in the first inning, and then Nora Rodriguez, Coppell's ace in the circle, she threw a complete game with 7 strikeouts. Lufkin got a run in the 7th on a leadoff triple and sacrifice fly, but they never got the tying run on or anything. So Coppell is moving on to the 3rd round as well, and they will play Conroe Oak Ridge, I believe, who beat Saxe, I think, if I recall.
Sounds about right.
Now, another team, just like the Colony, that won their first playoff series ever was Reedy. They had to come back down 3-0 the entire game against Lake Dallas. You know, Lake Dallas pitching was phenomenal in the doubleheader. Ryan Depperschmidt, by the way, is Lake Dallas's MVP. I don't know if y'all got that. If y'all think that after,
interesting,
because that's the only time I've seen them play. Yeah. He's their leadoff hitter. He got on base every at bat except for 1 in the 2 games. You know, he just found a way to get on base every time. He gave up 1 run in a 7-inning complete game victory in Game 2 to force a Game 3, and he was just awesome. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. Ryan Depperschmidt was awesome. Without him, they get swept. Yeah. But then in Game 3, Tyler Duffy, a guy who hadn't really started much all year because Lake Dallas has 2 really good pitchers in Depperschmidt and Mason Meeks, he comes in there, doesn't allow a run until the 5th inning, and this Reedy lineup is really good. And Coach Chris Cox, Reedy head coach, he told me after the game, he's like, yeah, in that 5th inning, I did not feel confident. I thought he told me he thought they were done, and then they just, they got two hits in the 2 runs in the 5th, and then a kid, Josh Hernandez, unsung hero for Reedy, a sophomore. He was filling in the original center fielder. He got hurt for the ear. He's out for the season. He got hurt last week in practice, and so he's come in. 8-hole hitter, had the game-tying RBI double in the 6th inning, and then they score a run a couple batters later, and they win 4-3. Pretty dramatic victory. And Reedy, they're off to play Forney now. Yeah, one of the toughest teams, in the state. 2 of the best pitchers in the state, also. So we'll see if they can keep the magical ride going.
What was saw the story dropped over the weekend that one of Forney's pitchers, Mason Enghart or whatever, he tied the state record with 55 consecutive scoreless innings. Yeah,
so it's going to be tough for Reedy, but congratulations to them for winning their first ever playoff series.
So then let's shift gears then to some track and field. So later this week we have the state meet, and one of the teams that'll be prominently featured at state's going to be McKinney North. And prior to state, Kendrick Johnson had a chance to swing by and chat with their superstar distance runner London Culbreath as the subject for our Fast Forward Rewind Student Athlete Spotlight. Enjoy.
Kendrick Johnson coming to you once again for another action-packed Fast Forward Rewind. This week's guest is a 3-time state record holder, 3-time state champion, and she's only a sophomore. Please welcome London Culbreath, a long-distance runner from McKinney North. How's it feel to have accomplished so much in such short time?
I feel so blessed, and I'm just so thankful that God gave me the opportunity to do this. It's a great feeling.
What's the difference between this year and last year? Like, I'm gonna say people didn't know who you were, but if they didn't know who you were, they learned by this time last year. This year, you've kind of had a bull's on your back everywhere you go. So it's a lot different, or to just make you run that much harder.
Yeah. So last year, I kind of didn't really know what to expect. It was my first year, so I just kind of jumped in and I did really well. So I think it's kind of a little bit more pressure on me this year because I think there's kind of standards that I should be getting faster or beating my time. So I know that's definitely different. It's not just coming in for the first time. It's kind of comparing my times that I ran last year, and there's just I guess more I wouldn't say pressure, but just kind of more drive to beat my times from last year and just progress and get better.
So are you competing with yourself, or do you when you come on and you see people kind of intimidated because they know who you are? Yeah. Do you feel like you're competing against the field, or is it just you competing against yourself and trying to get those times?
It's whenever it's kind of a race where I'm seated number 1. I just kind of think I'm running against time. So it's not that I'm not running against anyone, but I'm running against myself, or I'm running against time, trying to beat my time.
How's it feel to set that record last week at the regional tournament?
It felt amazing. I was really excited.
What was your goal? Was that the plan, or just kind of let this happen?
For the mile?
Yeah.
Well, I was planning on running 450 or like actually sub 450 because I haven't broken 450 yet. So I guess I was kind of hoping for a faster time, but the fact that I got the record was satisfying and like relieving.
Now I know you look for the big tournaments, and this is the biggest as they are coming up. Are you focused on breaking your record from last year and trying to set a record in the mile, or is you just finding a way to get two gold medals and get points for your team, or is the record is part of the package too?
I mean, I know points are really crucial this year, knowing like we kind of lost the senior last year, and there's really good competitors. So I know there's a point aspect, but for me personally, I'd love to get the mile record. I think that's like 4:48, and that's what I've been like trying to get this whole season. So that'd just be perfect to get it at state. With the 2 mile, I'd love to come close to like what I ran last year, and I think I got the record in that. So if I broke that again too, that'd be really cool. But I know they're in the same day, so I guess it just depends on how much I have in me, or how much energy and effort I use in one race and how it affects the other.
How much is going through it last year? Because that's a crazy turnaround. You got to run 2 miles and then you got to run another mile. Because last year, I remember that was the closest race I've seen you in. There was that mile, but it seemed like you didn't have your regular legs because you ran 2 miles the day before.
Yeah.
So going through that process, what did you learn from that? Especially since you came, because it's a lot easier to win to learn from a win than a loss.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was kind of disappointed that it was all on the same day because I won't have like full time to recuperate and refresh my legs. And I was going to try to do the 800 this year. This year would have probably been perfect because I think I have one of the highest times lowest times in that right now. So I was a little disappointed that they're on the same day, but I have to work with what I got and just I guess push through it. And I know the mile will probably be tough, but we'll probably figure out a way to if I'm more leaning towards the mile record, kind of save some energy in that 2 mile.
Has your life changed a little bit? Because you're only 16. I know you got really good grades, but this spotlight, how you been dealing with that? The fact that people know who you are, and I've seen people stop you for pictures and stuff like that. And I know you're kind of like a shy personality. How have you gotten used to all that?
I mean, I'm just really grateful for this kind of opportunity, and I definitely don't see myself as really big, and people will tell me that, but I mean, I just think of myself as another runner, and I'm just running for God, basically God's glory. How's
your mental game improved? I know you improved in every aspect, but that's an underrated aspect that you were you're very high on last year. How you took it to even another level this year?
Yeah, so after Nike, I mean, that was kind of like a really big letdown for me, so that kind of changed my perspective mentally, and I need to get on it, and I'm gonna make this season so much more better. So I just think after that loss at Nike, my mental aspect of running has definitely changed, in the fact of I'm gonna wipe the dirt off my shoulders, and I'm just gonna get up and give everything I have to make that not happen again. So.
Does I'm gonna say not performing as well as you can on a national stage, is that something that you keep in? Because some of these people think that you never lost, but the fact that you lost that race, is that kind of something that inspires you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think about it. I kind of use it as motivation now. I mean, definitely afterwards, I was really upset about it, but I mean, it had happened. What happened couldn't have changed how I ran. So, now I just use it as motivation to just train harder and work harder, and yeah.
I know you're far from cocky, but it's got to have that. What's that feeling to know that people need their personal best just to remotely compete with you?
I mean, it is very hard to take in. It's just. I'm just very thankful for the gift I have. So.
And that mile run, how much did that make you a better runner? Because last year, that's why you were no, the girl was on your shoulder, and I know that's your friend from Alito.
Yeah,
Gracie.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much did that particular race make you a better runner? Because we saw you have to kind of set her up, and then you kind of run on backstretch. You used your sprinting and stuff like that, and it was like a physical race for it to be a race.
That was probably one of my favorite races. It was one of the funnest too. It was fun to get to compete with somebody to the very end, and so both of our strategies were the same, and so when none of us were going out first, it was just kind of like a sit and wait game, and so she was waiting for me to go, I was waiting for her to go, which that doesn't work. So whenever we got to the last lap, it was just like we both went, and it was just that sprint at the end, and it was just really fun. I kind of liked getting that energy and just that kind of like reaction from the crowd, and it was really fun.
How many colleges, what's some of the top colleges that reached out to you? I know some people in the college track scene, and when I tell them, oh yeah, I cover London Culbreath, I have a good relationship with her. Oh, she's special. So you get her come. How's that feel, the fact that these colleges are starting to goo goo gaga when your signature to come to their school?
Yeah, I mean, it feels great. I'm not really for sure about all the schools, but I have been getting like some letters, and
We can't get no names?
well, I mean, I know I got one in the mail. I remember this from Nevada, and then I know I've gotten like one from Arkansas, Texas Tech, I think, Baylor, A&M. I'm not really for sure, but I think those are ones I've gotten them from.
So physically, what have you done this year? Because it sounds like you got a lot more muscle on your body, which is a good thing. But how do you keep from like getting like too big and keep your regular frame so you can be able to do what you do?
Well, we do weight rooms on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I mean, just staying consistent with that, I guess, helped. I mean, I haven't really noticed, but I mean, I'm glad you have, because I mean, they look pretty small to me, but and yeah, so we'll just be doing weight room a lot, and we'll just. Yeah.
What you've done some things that people don't even do in their career. How do you stay motivated? And is the ultimate goal, I know you're about the state records, is the ultimate goal to put these records so out of reach that somebody come, they just got to be that person?
Oh, yeah,
or are you worried about just getting the medals and doubling the next 4 years, the next 3 years to double, so you be like one of the few people? I wonder if that's been done. I'm gonna do some research on that, on getting that double, the 32 and the 1600 4 years in a row.
No, I'm definitely, like, whenever I race, I'm shooting to, like, give my best, and if I do get a record, make it as hard for anybody else to reach as possible. So, if I'm going to break a record, I want it to last as long as it can, because I just think that shows, like, how much it's worth. And so, usually, like, I guess it kind of depends on the race, but, at national meets, it's a little bit different. You're just kind of going for place, but at Brooks last year, at first I was trying, we set multiple goals. So if I knew in the race I wasn't going to get first, I was going to try to get the national freshman record, which was for time and records. So I ended up doing that. Although I didn't get first, I got third, but I did get the record. So it's always good to have both kind of plans, but just depending on the race. Yeah.
How big a deal is that national freshman record? And to know that the lady that you broke the record, I think she's like the face of American long distance running. So that could be you in a decade.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And what's the ultimate goal for this week with your dad? Give us some insight. I know your dad has little things that motivate you. What's the motivation for this week for state? Have y'all talked about that?
I mean, he did bring up the record in the mile, and so whenever he brought that up, I was like, oh yeah, I really want to get that, because we've been just working on speed lately at school and turnover work, so I'm hoping that can go towards that record, and hopefully I can beat it.
And final question, you want to give a shout out to your supporters, since you got so many people that we don't see behind the scenes that help London Culbreath be the star athlete that you are?
Yeah, I mean, definitely my parents, my coach, my friends, my teammates, anybody who's helped me at all in my running career, soccer career, just anybody who's influenced my life. I just thank them so much.
Okay. From another Fast Forward Rewind segment, Kendrick Johnson coming to you from McKinney North, home of state champion London Culbreath, who's trying to get not one, not two, but 3 more titles and 2 more records this weekend in Austin.
Big thanks to London Culbreath for taking the time to chat with Kendrick for the Fast Forward Rewind Student Athlete Spotlight, and let's just use that as a nice way to springboard into some state track talk. For this, I'm being joined by Devin Hassan, who's the sports editor for our Rowlett and Mesquite papers. State track's always a cool deal. It's later this week, Friday and Saturday, out at Mike A. Meyer Stadium out down at the University of Texas in Austin. And sure enough, I mean, Devin, we always have a pretty hefty turnout for the state track meet. So we're just gonna, kind of obviously get to everybody because we got a ton of kids there and we only got so much time. But we're going to touch on some of the more predominant storylines, within our markets heading into the state meet. Starting over in Class 5A, where of all of the teams that we have headed down to Austin, probably the one that has the highest likelihood of doing some damage in the overall standings, potentially bringing home some hardware, is McKinney North, the two-time defending Class 5A state champions on the girls' side. Lady Bulldogs have another strong contingent heading down to Austin. Devin, just a little bit on kind of what North has to look forward to later this week.
Well, you just mentioned London, which gives them a great opportunity to get off to a strong start. Obviously, in the distance events, if you follow high school track and field, she's almost become a household name. I mean, even if you don't cover McKinney North, you know who London Culbreath is because she's accomplished so much on a state and national stage in just a sophomore. Yep. So she's gonna be the heavy favorite in both those events. Frisco Liberty, Carrie Fish is certainly somebody that can challenge her. But when you talk about the team championship, obviously the two-time reigning champs, it comes down to the relays. Those relays, for people that may not know, they get double the amount of points in the events, and that's generally speaking the team that wins the state championship has to excel in the relays and has to qualify. Well, McKinney North did just that. They qualified their 4x1, 4x2, and 4x4. So that gives them an excellent chance to rack up points. They're highly seeded in each of those events. Yep. So they're expecting big points out of that. When you take into account London Culbreath also, they kind of assume that she's going to pick up maybe 10 points in both the 1600.
That's 20 points right there.
Yeah. So it's a stacked field. I don't know if McKinney North necessarily has the depth that they've had the past 2 years, but they'll certainly be a contender. And if they can, shine in the relays, they're going to be right up there toward the top.
With you mentioned the relays, and their 4x4 was one of the best performances period by a team at regionals, at the Region 2 5A meet. They enter state with the number 1 seed time, and they ran a Region 2 record, 3:42.59 in the 4x4. So they're, like Devin said, their 4x1, the 4x2, those were each seeded third overall. So they have a chance, at least on paper, to do some damage in both those events. It's going to require the tall task will be if it's enough to overtake Mansfield Lake Ridge, which was, McKinney North placed second at regionals to Lake Ridge by about 30 points in the standings. And Lake Ridge had, they had some athletes that not only did they win gold, but they won gold by a fairly significant margin in some of those events. And that's the kind of thing that can be a bit more magnified at state once you work in those, those regional qualifiers from the other 3 regions and whatnot. Let's see, you mentioned London. We just got to mention just what her seed times are and just how jaw-dropping some of these margins of victory could potentially be. So she enters in the 3200. Her regional time in that was a 10:25.87. That is 24 seconds faster than the next fastest time among those state qualifiers, and that's Carrie Fish, the Frisco Liberty. It's not as much of a disparity in the 1600, but London ran a 4:53.16. That's 6 seconds faster than Carrie Fish. First off, how much do you feel if you're Carrie Fish, who's a senior, she was the only other runner to run a sub 11 minute 3200 and a sub 5 minute 1600, but she's gonna finish. There's a ceiling there because London Culbreath is this glass ceiling. There's no breaking through, and Carrie Fish, for all of her, she'd be the best runner in the state in Class 5A, best distance runner in the state, if not for for London Culbreath.
Well, and again, it's not just the stage can be a little bit intimidating out there. That Mike A. Myers is an incredible atmosphere, but you got someone like London Culbreath who's done this on a national level.
Oh, yeah.
She's been to the biggest meets, whether it be AAU, USA Track and Field. She's competed in all these events, so the atmosphere, the stage isn't going to frighten her, and it's tough for opposing runners. I think she probably has that intimidation factor coming in because you got to run the race of your life just to hope to stay with her.
Pretty much. That's a very good way to put it. There is one other storyline for that 1600 that's going to be. It's a bit of a bummer that this isn't going to get to materialize, but last year at state, one of the few times at the high school level, you actually got to see London with a runner within striking distance of London entering that home stretch, and that was Gracie Morris, who was the same year as London last year when they were both freshmen. London won she won the 1600 with a 4:55.06. Gracie Morris ran a 4:55.17 175, so just 0.7 of a second, which, I mean, that's just...
In distance running, that's rare.
Yeah. So then, obviously with those two being freshmen at the time, all fingers were crossed that you get a rematch. Because they're freshmen. You're thinking this is the first of potentially 4 years of these two just throwing down on state. Well, unfortunately, Gracie Morris suffered a foot injury during cross-country season at a Foot Locker regional meet and in November, and that has sidelined her completely for track season. So we won't get to see that rematch, but maybe
next
we'll
year.
have to go for next year. Yeah. Some of the other notable storylines in Class 5A, obviously Frisco ISD is always going to have plenty of kids headed to state. Devin, I'm sure you can speak a little bit to just kind of what Frisco Heritage at least has.
I was going to say I don't know if there's necessarily any team contenders for the team championship, but there's certainly some individuals that have the potential of claiming gold down in Austin. Simone Watkins in the 100 hurdles, she enters with a time of 14:18, which is the number 1 seeded time coming in. Bailey Lear over at Frisco Heritage as well. She's number 1 ranked at 400. Won 8 consecutive races, which pretty much all season long.
Bailey Lear didn't get to run last year because she transferred from McKinney, wasn't able to run last season, but she's come out like a house of fire all season long.
And I mentioned Simone Watkins in the 100 hurdles. That's going to be kind of an interesting battle between a fellow Frisco ISD athlete, Brooke Shepard, that they enter as the top 2 times in the 300 hurdles. They've gone back and forth through district, through area, through regionals. So actually, Simone Watkins lost for the first time at the regional meet to Brooke Shepard. So expect those two to kind of battle it out for gold and silver there. And then Michael Schmull in the pole vault is one of the top. There's 3 pole vaulters that have cleared 16 feet heading into the meet. So he's certainly a contender to take the medal stand.
And then just a couple quick notes on Lovejoy, another team that's going to be prominently featured down at state. They'll Grace Ridgway, their star pole vaulter, she'll get a chance to defend her state championship. They also have a medalist, Chase Van Wagner, a star for the football team committed to TCU. He was the bronze medalist last year in the long jump, and he'll get a chance to improve on that. He enters with the number 2 seed in the long jump at 23.6 1/4. Plus, they have a newcomer to the state mix, one of the stars of their cross country team, Will Muirhead, just a sophomore, but he enters with the number 1 seed time in the 1600, a 4:19.79. He shaved 12 seconds off of his mark from the area meet. So potentially the first meet of potentially 3 trips to state for Will Muirhead.
Yeah, and Poteet has a couple athletes that are going to be down there competing. Dorian Morris, who's another standout from the football field. He qualified in the 400. He's the regional champion out of that region, but he runs the 100, 200, and 400, which is not common in track. You usually have a 100 and 200 guy, but then you have the middle distances. You see a guy run the 4 and 8. But Dorian Morris almost qualified in the 200 as well. Made the regional meet in the 100. So he comes in with the 3rd best qualifying time. So he's certainly capable of making the medal stand. And Vi Nguyen in the shot put, she went state last year. Faith Et is one of those outstanding Mansfield Lake Ridge athletes that is probably the favorite. I think she had the furthest throw by almost 5 feet. Wow. So she's the unquestioned favorite. But Vi, certainly she comes in with the 4th best qualifying mark, so she is certainly a candidate to make the medal stand.
Over in Class 6A, let's just touch on some of the more notable plot lines there. I was just looking through various seed times. Like 6A Region 1 was an absolute just murderer's row in several of these events, but specifically I think in the 800 on the girls' side. I was checking, so you had the top 3 seed times in the race all came from 6A Region 1. So then you factor. So I was curious then, like 4th place, one of the girls from Plano, Bianca Carocchio, she ran a 2:11.65 in the 800. But she didn't make state because obviously only three people max from a region can make it. But she would have had that 2:11.65 would have been the 4th highest.
Oh wow!
Would have been the 4th fastest seed time of the state qualifiers. So just a tough draw being in a region quite like 6A Region 1. But Plano will have some representation. They'll have Kennedy Blackman, who is their star. She runs the the 400 and the 200. She enters with the number 1 seed in the 400, a 53.68. She's number 3 in the 200 with a 23.72. She's the only 6A girl who's competing in both of those events at state, and kind of like similar to the workload for Bailey Lear, Frisco Heritage, who we just talked about. I'm impressed that athletes are able to make that kind of turnaround when you run those 2 events, because there's only one race that's in between the 400 and the 200, and that's the 300 hurdles. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I feel like of all of the, whenever you're covering a track meet and you try to talk to athletes after their race just to get comments on whatever, it feels like the 400 runners are the ones who are the most exhausted. And so, she's, Kennedy's going to only get about maybe 45, 50 minutes before having to run, that 200. But I'm just amazed that, just that she was able to just turn around and shake off just a very taxing 400 and then still qualify in the 200.
Well, yeah, and that's, you mentioned the quick turnaround, and especially at that distance, because, for instance, last year, Kayla Harris at Horn, she ran the 4x1, the 100 hurdles, and the 100 meters.
Oh, wow.
So you're basically having 3 races in less than half an hour.
Wow.
But again, they're sprints. But when you you talked about the 400 and then having to get over that right away to run the 200. Yeah, that's a pretty incredible feat.
There's one race that I'm excited to see just how it all shakes out is the 100 meters on the boys' side for 6A, because there was a bit of a snafu down at regionals, and just no actual times were recorded. So for whatever reason, when the starting gun went off for the 6A for the finals of the Region 1 boys 100 meter dash, when the starting gun went off, it didn't compute with their electronic timing equipment. So you ran the race. It was a really close competitive race. I would have been fascinated to see what the actual times were, but it's at UTA, and UTA is about as quick as it is as far as, when you finish the race, you look up at the scoreboard and you can see the times. The times are all right there. No times, though, for that 100. So we weren't sure if it was just, it was that close to finish, and they're just having a tough time figuring out who finished where. But no, there was a lapse in their with their equipment. So nobody was actually given a time for what they ran for that race. They had to go through and use cameras to try to then figure out, okay, he finished first, he finished second.
Okay, they just third. Visually.
Yeah. So there was at least a good 45 minutes to an hour before you learned who the top,
So was there any speculation, because obviously the top ranked non-automatic qualifier gets in? Was there any? How did they?
They called the coaches for it was Pascal, Plano, and Allen were the 3 coaches that were called down to midfield to the near the podium and whatnot. So you had a feeling that those might be the 3, and you could see Kyron Cumby of Plano Senior, as he was kind of sitting there kind of in limbo like the rest of us, but then you heard him kind of mouth to somebody off in the distance that he finished second, or he was told that he finished second. So it was kind of strange. What they had to do then is, just for the sake of being able to submit a time, just in case for that last wild card spot, they had the 3rd place finisher, Asante Fazaro of Allen. He ran a 100 by himself at the end of the meet, just so they could submit that time.
I don't think I've ever even heard of that before. That is just bizarre.
Very, very strange. So if you check on the UIL's website, because obviously Kyron and then the first place finisher, it was with Fort Worth Pascal, Gregory Scholars. They didn't have times that they could submit. So it just says on the seed times 2.01 for Scholars and 2.02 for Cumby, which would be world records that would never be broken, but obviously that's not what they actually ran.
And as I was going through qualifying times, I just happened to scroll through and see that. I thought it was just a misprint, or I had no idea
we had 2 high school kids just ran a 2-second 100-meter dash.
Pretty impressive.
What's so weird about that, Devin? I don't know why you would say such a thing. So it's kind of fascinating then to kind of think of what that, how that'll translate, because I would have been fascinated to know what Kyron's time was, to see how it would stack up with, with the rest of these. If you look off of kind of what he had been, the range that he had been in all year, it's about a 10:45, 10:50. His PR is 10:38, which if you're just going strictly off the PR, that would be the number 2 seed time. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking at more kind of his range, that's probably closer to 4th, 5th, 6th overall. But just a fascinating subplot from regionals, as no one's quite sure what to expect out of Kyron Cumby or Greg Scholars from Fort Worth Pascal. Let's see, do we have any? Where else do we have? Allen. Oh yeah, we'll have obviously stuff to monitor with Allen at State. We mentioned Kennedy Blackman in the 400. Another athlete that's going to be that qualified for that is her club teammate, Allen's own Esther Ekianyanwu. And Esther, she enters with the 4th seed time, albeit by just 1/100th of a second. So there's obviously still plenty of reason to believe that she could wind up on the medal stand. It was last year though at State that she placed second and ran a PR of 53.83. So she's got you talked about being able to overcome the nerves of competing at State. This is going to be Esther's 3rd time, I believe, competing in the 400 at State, and so she's been through that, through that experience once already. Whereas this is Kennedy. Kennedy qualified last year in the 200, but her first time running the 400 at State as well. Elsewhere with Allen, you got Tosin Alau, who is on paper at least, the overwhelming favorite in the triple jump. She's has the top seed, and she jumped a 41.9.5 at regionals. That was almost 2 feet further than the next closest. And in the triple jump, that is 2 feet is a massive gap between two athletes. So we'll see if form holds. Tosin's another athlete with several years of experience competing in all these high-level meets and whatnot. She made it to State as a freshman. So we'll see what holds for her out there. Other notes. Alyssa Miller with McKinney Boyd, she's going to be very busy. She qualified in 3 events. She'll be competing in both of the hurdles, the 100 and the 300 hurdles, as well as the high jump. And then you've got a couple former state medalists at Market. They're going to be in action with Quinn Owen, their 1600 runner. She's going to get to defend her state championship after running a 4:52.76. That's the number 1 seed time at regionals. She actually ran 5 seconds faster last year in winning state at as just a junior. And then you have their pole vaulter, Mackenzie Hayward, who has the number two mark in the pole vault. She was the silver medalist last year at State, but she enters kind of like the boys pole vault over in 5A. There's four different athletes that have the seed vault of 12.6. So it should be a very competitive race there. Let's see. We've also got for Flower Mound, Jarrett Kirk. He has the number 1 seed time in the 3200. A 9:09.64, only time below 9:10. So on paper, he has should have a bit of an edge in that race. And then also for Plano, you have Ashlyn Hilliard, who has the number 2 seed time in the 3200, as she looks to win her first state championship in track and field. That's about all I had, Devin.
Yeah, I was going to touch on Rowlett real briefly.
Go for it.
Rowlett, the boys track and field program, they have a little bit of history. And when you look at Garland ISD as a whole, they've had success in the playoffs, but they haven't had a lot of success winning state championships. Garland High football won 4, but that was 56, 63, 64, then 99. Garland High softball had the nice run of 4 straight state tournaments under Tommy Garrison, and they won a couple state titles during that run. And then you have the Rowlett boys track. 2008, 2009 with Marquise Goodwin, obviously outstanding all-around athlete, currently in the NFL, and Kyle Clemens, an accomplished runner in his own right. But that's it for Garland ISD. So the Rowlett boys track program, they really wear that kind of as a badge of honor. They're proud of it, and they have a high bar. I'm not going to say they're not going to win the state championship this year, but they're sitting in a nice contingent. I mean, Harrison Manuel finished second in the 110 hurdles. Katavian Humber of John Tyler is the favorite in that event, but all 9 are separated. There's very little separation between all 9 qualifiers. And they also send a couple of relays. They're 4x1. Harrison Manuel is in that group, along with Precious Ilugu. I butchered that, but it's tough. Emmett Seals and Jared Wesley, and they also qualified their 4x4 with Emmett Seals and Jared Wesley also on that team, along with Lance Canyon, the district champion in the 400, and Jerry Evans. So with having 2 relays and Harrison Manuel, who's a contender to make the medal stand, they're not going to win the team championship, but they could finish in the top 10 if the relays perform.
All righty. Hey folks, that is a nice little quick primer for the state track and field meet later this week, Friday and Saturday out at UT in Austin. We'll have recaps from all the happenings at state track once the meet concludes. You can check out all that good stuff at starlocalsports.com. Otherwise, Devin, appreciate y'all for tagging along. Thanks to Brian and Justin earlier for talking some baseball and softball. Folks, we'll be back on Thursday with another edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. Y'all enjoy the rest of your week. We will talk to y'all later. Thanks again to our sponsors, Star Local Media, 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news.